Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday night call. I appreciate you guys all jumping on. As you guys are actually jumping on right now to the live call, if you can just put your name and where you're from in the chat, I would love to see kind of where everyone is from around the world and kind of see. I think last time we had the winner was from Johannesburg, South Africa. So I want to see. I'm in Florida. See where the furthest we got people joining from. It's always interesting to see who joins this live call. So if you can, put your name and where you're from in the chat. All right, here we go. We got Christy in Texas. We got Rajiv in NYC. We got, oh man, scrolling by fast. Samantha, Florida. Welcome, Samantha. We got Taria in the Bahamas. Welcome, Taria. We got, let's see, Central Coast, California. Katie, welcome. We have Rochester, Minnesota. Michael, actually, I have family there, Michael, in Rochester. Raphael from Arizona. Sweet. All right. Julie from Canada. All right, that's our first outside the U.S. And we got Amir from Toronto. Welcome. So, Victor, you're from Peru, but you're living in Florida, so I can't count that as being too far from where I am right now. All right. Jorge, Coeur d'Alene. I heard Coeur d'Alene is a beautiful spot. I've not been there. Hey, Natalie from Cambridge, UK. You got the spot right now for the furthest away from where I am. Cool. Oh, Lingesh, Malaysia. LT, I think you win. Malaysia is definitely winning right now. All right. Darrow, you're Irish, but you're living in Sydney. Actually, I think Sydney it's going to be very hard to beat Sydney. I think you win on that. Let's see. We got, all right, Ignacio from Chile. All right, welcome, Ignacio. We got Angel from Pennsylvania, Sean from Edmonton, Ramiro is from California, Amit from Fresno. All right, guys, this is awesome. We got people from all over the place. We got Floyd, Honolulu. That's actually fairly far away from where I am. I think you're probably in second or third place, Floyd. All right. David, Orlando. Brian Mitchell from the Bay Area. Corey from Utah. Welcome, Corey. All right, guys. We're going to give it another minute or so, and then we're going to get started. I want to make sure everyone can get in here before we get started on the call. So let's give everyone another minute or two, and then we'll jump in and get started. Angel, for your question, it was 18 months for my first acquisition, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I had nobody helping me. And we'll go over tonight how we can do this in a much faster time frame. Good question. Got Steve from Nashville. Awesome. Welcome, Steve. I appreciate you guys spending your Wednesday night with me. I appreciate you jumping on. I'm going to do the entire lesson. And if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to answer. We're going to have a live Q&A, and I'm going to answer every single one of you guys' questions, right? But you got to stick with me to the end. That's the only thing you got to do is just bear with me for about an hour. I'll try to get through the presentation and the lesson quick, and then we'll jump right into your live Q&A. All right, guys. Okay, we're about 4 minutes past the hour, so we're going to get started because I can't wait anymore. All right, so let's get this going. All right, here we go. How to buy a six-figure per year business with little to zero out of pocket in the next 6 months. So tonight we're going to be going over 4 main ideas. One is, how do you find these businesses to acquire? How do you find good deals versus bad deals? How do you fund the deal with other people's money? That includes the bank, investors, even the seller's own financing. And then how do you close on a deal to acquire your first business? All right, let's jump in. Now, this method, remember, does not involve investing huge lump sums into building your own business. That's not what we're doing. Or building a business from the ground up, or taking a ton of upfront risk, or going through all the guesswork that I did when I first got into this industry. This method is not just because I'm a smart guy or I'm somehow special. I'm not on either of those fronts. This exact framework has been passed on to my students, and dozens of them have been closing deals on their first cash flowing business. And those businesses will continue to cash flow for the foreseeable future. So once you have this system down, the same system I'm showing you guys tonight, you'll be able to do the same thing. Now, guys, if you go over, I'm going to show you some of this is Zach, Roger, we have Sean here. These are all reviews on trustpilot.com/acquisition ace. You can go look. There's plenty of these, and you can read through all of them in your own time. I just put them up there to show you that we have people in the program that are enjoying it. But if you want to read them all, go to trustpilot.com/acquisition ace. All right. Why is this opportunity life-changing? Over the next 10 years, 75 million baby boomers are going to retire. Now, this accounts for 1/3 of all the available small businesses in the United States. So this is going to be the largest wealth transfer of all time. We're not talking billions, we're talking trillions, and we'll go into a little bit more detail later on. And positioning yourself right now with understanding how to go out and acquire these businesses is going to make and break millionaires all across the United States. These businesses will cash flow for decades beyond as supply becomes dry again. So we got about a decade where the baby boomers are retiring, the 75 million. That translates to about 13 million businesses. And the opportunity is between now and over the next 10 years in which those businesses have to exchange hands. So where else currently do you feel confident deploying your capital in this market? Stocks, crypto, real estate. Again, you might think all three are great, and you might think none of those are. But by the end of this training, you're going to understand why acquiring established businesses is by far the best place to put your capital and to get the best ROI, not only for the short term, but also to accumulate long-term wealth. Now, why is tonight important? In the age of online business models, information has become easy to access. You can go to Google and you can find out almost anything. However, tonight and the topic that we're doing right now, the information here is not easy to find. And trust me on this. Go out there after this call, go Google it, try to find all the information I'm talking about. You're not going to be successful at doing it. You'll be learning tonight about how you can make millions, and barely anyone knows how this is possible because it's something that is now just coming into being as a self-funded searcher. These ideas have been around a long time, but packaging them and strategizing them the way that we've been able to put together, this is something fairly new to the market. Now, a private coaching plan that is going to basically teach you the same thing that I'm going to be talking to you guys tonight. I used to actually charge teaching people this in a private one-to-one coaching lessons between $2,000 and $4,000 a month. And I would take them on and I would kind of be their coach throughout the acquisition process all the way to the end. But tonight, all the same information that these are the first couple sessions that I would do in that coaching. It's just been packaged here. And obviously it's completely free tonight for you guys to join me. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out. And so make sure you guys are taking notes and paying attention. Now, who am I? Some of you guys on the call are like, who the heck is this guy? Why did I join this webinar? I have no idea why I'm here. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. So my name is Ben, and today I own 6 businesses. I've sold 1. Now, these 6 businesses net me around $850K a year in profit. It was definitely not always like this. A few years ago, I was at JP Morgan, and this is kind of how I fell into the lap of what acquisitions could do. Now, when I was at the bank, I was in the private bank section, which is managing very wealthy people's money. And most of my clients were gaining their wealth through acquiring other businesses. Now, I noticed that some of my wealthiest clients were doing this, and they were doing it often, every single year, acquiring more and more businesses. I saw some of my clients double or triple their net worth within a year by doing this method. And so once I saw this happening enough times, I was just completely bought and sold on doing this for myself. Now, the framework that I'm talking about tonight is the same framework that I used over the last few years. And I also can say that I'm not special. I've done this with dozens of my students just in the past year, and they've been able to close on their own deals. Some of the companies I've acquired are right here below for you guys to check out. Now, why this training exists? Like I said, this information changed my life and my family's life. And I want to teach you guys how to do the same thing. I get asked almost every single day about, in 2024, does buying businesses still work? And what do you need to get started? And this topic is, we're going to go through an hour going through this exact method. It's long to put onto a YouTube video. It's long to definitely put into an IG post or on X or any of the other social platforms. So this is where I'm able to break it down, be able to spell it out for you, and then you guys get to ask me questions at the end if you stay with me. So for right now, I have a challenge for you guys. For the next 60 minutes, close out all the unnecessary tabs, put phone away, take diligent notes. Like I said, the information I'm going over tonight is not something that you can easily find. So take advantage of it. All right. I'm going to blow through this stuff really quick because I want to get to the end and make sure I get all of you to the live Q&A where I can answer your questions. So make sure you guys are taking diligent notes. Now, if you're ready to get started, comment me in the chat and I'm going to be jumping into the training. I want to make sure you guys are still awake. So comment me in the chat and we are going to get started. All right. I see some me's coming through. All right, everybody. I appreciate you being with me. Okay, let's get going. All right. Next question. What is your experience when it comes to business acquisition? All right. So number one, never heard about it until today. You came here not knowing anything about what you're getting yourself into. Number two, you've heard about it and you've done a little bit of research. Okay. Number three, you've done a good bit of research. You just haven't acquired a business yet. 4, you've acquired one business and you want to acquire more. 5, I've acquired a bunch of businesses and I'm just here to listen to what you have to say. So put 1 through 5. I kind of want to see where you guys are starting at as I am going to be pouring into this presentation. So show me the numbers of where you guys are currently at. So we got a bunch of 2s and 3s. Got a 2s and 3s. Okay, so a lot of you guys have heard about it. You've done a little research or you've done a good amount of research. You just not have gone down the path of acquiring a business. Okay, so we got some 1s there. We got a 5. All right. Got some 2s and 3s. Irina, 1 and 2. Good. Konstantinos, we're just good. I'm glad you're here. We're learning about this entire process. We got some more 2s and 3s, 2s. Awesome. Tony, 1 to 2. Dara, 1. Awesome. Victor, a 3. Awesome. Okay, so it seems like we got people in here that have just heard about it today, and then we have a good number of you guys who've heard about it, done some research. You just haven't gone and actually took your first step doing the process. So that's perfect. All right, let's launch. And Thomas is 0. Okay, Thomas, I hope you made it to the right call. Okay, let's get into the training. Remember to bring your note, take notes. Tonight, you're going to learn the 7-step process to acquire the business in the next 6 months with little to zero out of pocket. Now, if I could go back in time and get all of this information, this would have helped me so much, and I probably would have been around a dozen businesses by now. No kidding. Now, at this point, our system is dialed in, and I'm confident that if anyone follows this exact same strategy, they can start to see similar results. So here's the first step. Here we go. How to determine cash flow requirement and the industry that you desire. So the first step right now is defining your goal with the business that you are going to acquire. Now, I teach this exact method to my students, and it's backwards engineering, right? So let's say, and stick with me through the math here. I promise I'm going to try to go a little slow so we can make sure we get the numbers down. Let's say you're shooting for $200,000 a year in cash flow. This is after debt service and after expenses. By debt service, we're talking about the loan that you just took out to acquire this business. You have loan payments. So after loan payments, after the expenses, this is what's going to come into your pocket at the end of the year. So to get $200,000 in cash flow from the business, you have to look for businesses that are selling at $300,000 to $400,000 in cash flow. So we're going to call it $350K for the sake of this example. Now remember, you're looking for a business that is advertising itself as selling for $350,000 in cash flow, because after you take out a loan to buy it, you got to minus those loan payments from the $350,000, and you will now be left with around $200,000 a year left as cash flow in your pocket. Now, these businesses are going to sell between a 2 and a 4x multiple. And so we're going to take the middle for this example and put it as a 3. So remember from the previous page, $350,000 in cash flow. That's what the seller is selling it and advertising it as. So we're going to take that multiple, 3, and we're going to times that by the cash flow. And that's going to give us a purchase price of just over $1 million at $1,050,000 for a business that, if you were to purchase it with an SBA loan, would net you around $200,000 a year in profit. All right. So just to reiterate, $1 million business or just over. If you were to buy it with an SBA loan, after your debt payments and everything else, you're looking at around $200,000 a year left over in profit. Now, so to buy this business with an SBA loan, you need to bring 10% to the table. So that means just over $100,000. Now, you could do this with your own money or investor money, and we're going to cover those both shortly. Now, when it comes to the industry you're looking to acquire, and here are some pointers. These things are the end-all, be-all in terms of every business I look at and I tell my students to look at has to hit these 3 criteria. The business has to be recession resistant. The business has to have a barrier to entry. And then the business operates primarily off of recurring revenue. Okay. So let me go through those real quick just to make sure everyone understands what I'm saying. Recession resistance means that if a recession or depression or anything happens in the macroeconomic environment, the service that this business provides is still needed. It's not a fad. It's not something that's trendy. It's not something that people really don't need. It is a essential service that people need in order to live their lives. So we're talking about HVAC and plumbing and accounting. In some areas, this can include landscaping, this pest control. There's a whole litmus of home service companies, white collar professional services, and so on, of companies that if there was a recession, these are proven to be resistant to the big swings that happen in other industries like new construction. All right. So with every industry you're looking at, we want to make sure that it meets all three of these requirements. A barrier to entry is something where it's hard to compete against a current business in that field. So for instance, if it's an HVAC company, you need a license to operate it. So not everyone can just start an HVAC company and start to compete against you. It would have to be someone who's had years of experience that is able to attain the license necessary to then start a business. So we want something that's a barrier to entry for someone to come and compete against you for your customers. All right, now we're on step 2. How do you set up the scripts and strategy for off-market sourcing deals? So once you've chosen an industry, this is where step 2 comes into play. You should have decided on your industry, geographical location, and the cash flow requirement. All right. To do off-market sourcing, you need to know where you're looking. That's geographic location. You need to know what size of company. That's the cash flow requirement. And then you have to know what type of industry, because that's how you are able to target that company. You have to know what you're looking for. So for an example, we're going to say a landscaping business in Atlanta, Georgia, that's doing around $1 to $1.5 million in purchase price. That's the total enterprise value. So once you have these details, you're going to scrape all of the leads that fit these requirements from places like LinkedIn, PPP data, local business guides like Yelp and others, and Apollo.io. Now, there are plenty of other sources out there where you can go and scrape leads, but these are some of the ones that are most well known and easy to utilize. You go over here, you scrape the leads that fit all of the landscaping businesses in Atlanta, Georgia that are between $1 and $1.5 million purchase price, and you start to get all of that email addresses and phone numbers. You scrape that data, and then you're off to starting a campaign for a cold email outreach. So then after you have the leads, you're going to be writing your scripts. And it's very important that these scripts are written from a buyer's perspective. All right. So we don't want scripts where you're just sending out 1,000 emails saying, hey, I want to buy your HVAC company. And it doesn't talk about who you are, why you're doing this, why you're the best person to buy their business. We want a detailed approach that personalizes the outreach, because the more personalized the outreach, the better the response rates, which means more meetings, which means an actual deal getting across the finish line. Step 3, how do you set up a network of brokers within your target industry for on-market deals? So we just talked about off-market deals, which are deals where the owner of the business is not currently selling. And when you outreach in that cold email to them, that might be the first time they think about selling, right? So you're the first person they're talking to, and that gives you the advantage of getting the best possible deal. Now, in step 3, we're talking about on-market deals. These are deals where they are currently listed for sale by a business broker. So they're represented by a broker, and that broker is going out there and marketing this deal to the public at large to sell this business. Now, to get started, you should check out websites like bizbuysell.com and withkumal.com. These are areas where you can go on, you can search and look at the listings that are in your current area that are for sale. Now, as you start to look through these available listings, we want to talk about the best and most efficient way that you can start to network. As you go through these listings, there's going to be listing agents on the side of the listing. These are going to be your focus. You want to write down their name, phone number, and the deals that are underneath them. Sometimes agents, just like real estate agents, they have multiple deals that are underneath them. So you can see all of the deals that they're listed on. So even if you don't see the listing as being something you're interested in, write down that broker's information. Because what we're doing here is building a network of brokers that are selling businesses in our target price range or our target industry. So by making a list, and this is what I tell everyone, is just do a Google sheet, Make a column where it has the deal with a link to it. It has the broker's name, their contact information, another column for notes, and keep that organized, because as you do this, I promise you, you're going to start to mix up deals. You're going to be looking at so many deals that your head's going to start to spin. So make sure it's organized. And you're going to list all of these brokers with all of their contact information, and you're going to start outreaching to each one of them. And you're going to talk about what you're doing, who you are, and what you are looking for. And eventually, you're going to build up a huge Rolodex of listing agents that you've been in contact with, right? And they all know that you're serious because you reached out to them, you were proactive, you introduced yourself, you told them exactly what you're looking for. And now you have 10 to 20 brokers in your network that know you're serious, and they're now starting to send you daily or weekly emails about deals that are coming into their pipeline or things that they're currently selling. The goal is to get as many brokers sending you deals instead of you chasing them for deals. Okay, so you're building up this broker network. Step 4, how do you analyze a deal in order to make a competitive offer? Now, typically, most small businesses, as we mentioned before, sell at a 2 to 4x multiplier of the annual cash flow. Now, for a business where the owner is doing a lot of the work and it's not scalable, that is more of a 2 multiplier. Okay, so a 2 multiplier, and remember, we're timesing the SDE, or the seller discretionary earnings, which is another way of saying cash flow to the owner. So if you are looking at a business where the owner is working 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, they're essential to the business, they're in the day-to-day, that is more like a 2x business, because you are, if you were to buy that business, you're buying a job, right? That person that you're replacing is an employee that is needed in the day-to-day. So the value of that business is lower. Investors and people who want to buy great businesses that are easy to scale, they want a business where there's a general manager who is not the owner running the day-to-day, and the owner is able to work on the business, not in the business, right? And that would be more of a 4x business. So if a business owner is very involved, this is more as a 2x business. And then a 3 is somewhere in the middle between the two, and a 4 is operationally excellent, and it's turnkey in how you're able to manage it. So when you're looking at the business, you want to ask yourself these 5 questions. How much is the owner doing day to day? How good is the team in place? How scalable is the business today? And how much room do you have to grow? Not every business you look at to buy, and it could be a great business, but not every business can scale. Some businesses are brick and mortar, based in a geographical location. They got great name recognition, but they only can grow more if the town grows more, right? If more people move into it, they've pretty much maxed out how profitable they could be. What industry is the business in? And then are there a lot of competitive offers coming in? So you're going to take all 5 of these questions. You're going to be getting the answers to them. And from there, you're going to be starting to know, is this more a 2x business or is it more a 4x business? And remember, you're always offering slightly below what you're looking to pay so that you have room to negotiate to get a good deal. Step 5, how do you write an LOI that will get accepted and set up a deal for a quick closing? So an LOI is a letter of intent, and it's a non-binding document that agrees to hypothetical terms and conditions regarding what you're going to pay to buy the business that you found. The LOI is the first formal time when you will propose terms and conditions to the current owner of the business. It comes before the purchase agreement, which is legally binding. So think of the LOI as kind of the foundation. This is the foundational letter, sending it to the seller saying, hey, I want to offer $1 million for your business, and here are the terms. If the seller agrees to that, he signs it. Now we have a foundation. It's non-binding, which means the next day the owner could say, never mind, or you could say, never mind, and there's no harm, no foul. But now we at least have something in writing that shows we both agreed, and now we're going to take this to our attorneys and we're going to craft the contractually binding agreement, which is called the asset purchase agreement. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But when it comes to the LOI, there's 2 main components that matter. 1, the purchase price breakdown. How are you going to pay to buy this person's business? And second, the seller's involvement post-close. Okay, so after you've closed on the business, what does that look like? Is the seller going to work inside the business for a couple of months? Is the seller just going to be a consultant? Or is the seller on a cruise out to Tahiti, never to return, right? All this has to be laid out in that LOI, because that is setting up the foundation of how you're going to set up the purchase agreement, which is the contract that guides the actual sale. Now, involvement post-close, we talked about could be consulting, keeping a piece of equity, but the main components of having an LOI accepted are making a good offer, and you can go in business acquisitions, you can go much lower than the asking price, but you need to back it up. You need to be able to back it up by how you are valuing it. It's not just enough to say, hey, I'm going to give you half of what you're asking just because I want to pay less. You got to show how you got to that number. Also, being very clear and providing incentive for the seller is involved in post-close. We want deals where the seller is incentivized after you own the business to help you succeed. And so we're structuring deals where the seller either has equity or gets paid out on terms, or there's a clawback provision where if the business doesn't perform to the standard, then they won't get the full payout, right? There's all these different ways to make sure that we're incentivizing the seller to stick around and help out the new owner. Step 6, how to build a funding network in order to put zero down to fund your deal. So this is similar in concept to step 3, but this is just for funding. Before you acquire your first business, you want to tell your friends and family. Now, this is key. Never go out and ask people for money. Don't go to your mom, your dad, your friends, your community and say, hey, I need some money to buy a business. No, that if you're doing that, you shouldn't be buying a business. But rather, we are talking and bringing people along the journey of what we're doing and telling them what we're going to do. So for instance, my first time I raised money, what I did was I told my friends and family and people at my church, when people asked, hey, Ben, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? I would tell them, instead of just giving them the generic, hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing? I actually said, hey, you know what? I'm actually trying to acquire an accounting firm. And the second you say something like that, the person is going to say, well, hold on, accounting firm, I didn't know you were an accountant. And I'm like, I'm not an accountant. Now you have their attention. And they're going to ask, well, why would you want to be buying an accounting firm? And then you go into, well, it's recession resistant. It's got a barrier to entry and it has recurring revenue. And all these other things are going to come out of your mouth. And you're just going to totally intrigue them on what you're doing because it's different and they haven't heard about this strategy. So the next time you meet them, they're going to say, hey, Ben, how's the search for the accounting firm? And I'm going to update them. Oh, I'm talking to 2 accounting firm owners tomorrow. And the more you talk about it, the more that you're going to bring them in to what you're doing. And I guarantee you, by doing this, you're going to have people say, you know what? Hey, I don't have time to kind of do the acquisition thing like you are, but I would love to be a part of it. Can I invest or can I be a partner in this deal? I guarantee you, you do this for a few months, you are going to have people who do that. Now, that's all dependent on if you're a trustworthy person and have friends and family, which I'm assuming everyone on the call has that. All right. So that is exactly how you're going to start doing this. Don't go out asking people for money. You talk about what you're doing. You clearly articulate how you're going to do it, and you're going to have people who want to come along for the ride. Step 7, how to close and receive a paycheck on day 1 after acquiring your deal. So once you got the business under LOI, you got the purchase agreement signed, you completed all your due diligence, now you're ready to close. And once you completed the above, you need to now make sure your LLC is set up correctly, your closing date is set, and then you're waiting for the bank to approve everything on the loan sign if you're actually using a loan. And then 1 to 2 weeks after you close on the business, you're going to get your first paycheck. And so you can get the deal done with zero out of pocket if you got outside funding or a loan from a bank, and you start seeing an ROI literally days after. And that business will continue to pay you out for years to come as long as you decide to have it. So we just went through all 7 steps, okay? And I know it's a lot, and I know I was going through it quick. So now we're going to actually put it into action. We're going to talk through some of my students' actual deals so you guys can see some of these numbers play out right now. So this is Garrett. Garrett bought an accounting firm, and newsflash, Garrett is not an accountant, all right? And you actually can watch this. You can watch it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. You can actually see me interview Garrett if you want to actually watch the entire video. But his accounting business for sale was at $1.7 million is what he put it under contract at. The SDE, or the owner benefit, okay, so it's another term for cash flow, was $576,000 a year. Now, in his deal, the owner, the seller, was going to remain to be the GM for years to come. So the seller was selling the business, getting that big payment, the $1.7 million, but it was also going to stay in the business as an employee that was running it on the day-to-day. It was a great setup that Garrett was able to set up on doing this deal. Now, he was financing the purchase with an SBA loan at 11.5% interest on a 10-year term. 10% down payment, that's $182K roughly, including fees that he had to bring to the deal. The SBA loan payment was $21,000 a month. That's the expense, the debt service he took on the loan, and that was the monthly payments. So what you do is you take the free cash flow before the loan, you minus the loan payments on the yearly basis, which is the 256, and then you get $320,000 a year in cash flow. That's 175% cash on cash return in year one. And guys, this is not even a crazy good deal. This is a good deal. This is not a great deal. These deals are run of the mill that we're doing within our group. So let's look at a second one. This is Andrew. So Andrew's deal is also an accounting firm. Actually, accounting firms are probably one of the most popular deal types in our group, which is hilarious because we talk about all different types of deals, but a lot of our students love accounting firms. So $550,000 accounting business for sale. It had an SDE or cash flow of $320,000 a year. Now, in this deal, Andrew was able to get the owner to remain to run the GM, be the GM, and run the day-to-day for 1 year. After that, the owner was going to leave. The seller was going to leave. So he financed his purchase with an SBA loan at 11.5% on a 10-year term. 10% down payment is $55K, which Andrew did not bring. He actually brought an investor that he met in our group, and the investor put the $55K down. So Andrew did this deal with zero down of his own money. The SBA loan payment is $7,000 a month. So you take the free cash flow, which was before the purchase, you minus what the yearly loan payments are, which is $84,000, and then you get $235,000 as cash on cash return. Year one was around 428%. All right, that's insane. This is what I would characterize as a great deal. Zero out of his own pocket and 428% cash on cash return if he had put the $55K down, which he didn't, which means that every dollar he makes is an infinite return. Okay. Here we go. 7 steps. We just went through all this right now. Real quick. Here's the list of all the 7 steps. 1, how to determine the cash flow. 2, set up the scripts. 3, build a network of brokers. 4, analyzing a deal. 5, writing an LOI. 6, building a funding network. 7, how to close and receive a paycheck. Which of these steps do you think was the most impactful? Okay, so I want you to write right now in the chat, 1 through 7, which of these was the most impactful for you guys as you were watching this presentation? All right, Alexander, we got a 4. Awesome. How to analyze a deal. Awesome. What other some Salon? We got 3, 6, 3. Constantinos has a 3. Jacob 3. 3, 2, 3, 4. All of them. Chandra, great. I'm glad you like it. Okay. Michael 3. Victor 6. Andrew 4. 3. Okay, so it sounds like a lot of you guys got the most value from 3, 4, 7. I'm seeing a lot of 6s in there too. Awesome. Okay, I'm seeing you guys put it all right here. 3, 3, 3. Awesome. How to build a network of brokers. I can see that resonated. Great stuff, guys. Okay, good. Glad to hear that everyone's on that. So here are the 2 things that there's 2 paths for an entrepreneur. You go the startup route, which you risk wasting your time, money, and effort, and maybe you make some profit months, if not years down the line. Or you buy a business that already has an existing customer base, a proven product, and you get paid on day one. So when you buy a company, it already has 3 vital traits: existing revenue, existing product, and existing team. It's the ultimate hedge against market and business risk because somebody has already taken those risks and survived. Now, guys, I want you to listen to these percentages right here because this is super important to show you the difference in a acquisition versus a startup. Business acquisition has a proven success rate of 90% in a 5-year span. That's not me saying it. You can go on SBA.gov, which is a government website. You can look at the loans that they hand out over a 5-year period, and you can see how many of them succeed in being paid back and what the success rate is, and it's above a 90% success rate. And you also can look up startups and see what the failure rate of a startup is over the first 5 years, and it's over 90%. So it's literally the inverse of one another. The success rate of acquisitions is above 90%. The failure rate of startups is above 90%. Now, if you were like me and you would rather acquire a proven business model that has guaranteed profits on day one, you're in the right place. Business acquisition literally changed my life, and I want the same for you guys. So this concludes the training, okay? But we still got a lot of value coming up in the live Q&A. I appreciate you guys all sticking around with me. We're going to go through a couple more slides. ask some frequently asked questions, and then we're going to jump into the chat. I see some questions already in the chat right now. Keep them for the live Q&A, and I promise I'm going to hit every single one of them. All right? So I hope this, guys, was worth your time, okay? And I hope that if you have any questions, stick with me all the way to the end at the live Q&A. Unfortunately, right now, and this is just life, 95% of you guys on this call are going to take this information, you're going to do nothing with it, and that's perfectly fine. Business acquisition is not for everybody. There's plenty of people out there that are capable of doing other great things, and business acquisition is not one of them. Having the concept down is great, but putting it into action is a whole different story. Now, from my own experience, right, when I did this alone, one of you guys before asked me in the chat, how long did it take me to acquire my first business? The answer is 18 months, and I wasted over $10,000 in the process. I didn't know what I was doing. I read some books, did a bunch of YouTube videos, and I lost a bunch of time and a bunch of money. But I learned from my mistakes, and years later, after now doing 7 acquisitions, I've gotten to the point where we have the strategy to go and do this in a third of the time. So what I've accomplished in the past 5 years should have taken me about half the time to do it. I see others, and I see some of my students are way outpacing me. They're a year in, and they're on their 3rd acquisition, whereas it took me years to get to that point of being on my 3rd acquisition. So you understand how crucial this opportunity is as we're looking at what one acquisition can do. So this isn't going to be an opportunity to last forever. The biggest wealth transfer of all time is right now in the next 10 years. That is where the baby boomer generation is retiring, and those 13 million businesses are going to be transitioning hands. Now, you don't have forever to go through all the trial and error like I did. I'd rather you did not. If this is something that you want to do, do not waste the time, do not waste the energy and your own money going down a path where there's a lot of obstacles in the way and a lot of things out there that are going to take your money before you actually get a deal done. Now, it took me years, but I'm confident that I can get you seeing results in as little as 6 months. We have it down to a science, and we want you guys to be a part of our next success story. So up until this point, guys, I appreciate you guys sticking with the live training. And right now, if you guys have understood everything that I've been laying down, or you want to learn more and you think that this is the right thing for you to do, then at this point, I'm going to open up a handful of spots for you guys tonight to speak with my senior consultants. Now, this call is to see if you're a good fit for my team. We're very picky about who we take into our group. We've got to make sure that you have the right background, experience to be able to get an acquisition done and for us to work together hand in hand to make that happen. So we're very picky on who comes into this group. And then we hope that not only are you going to get your first acquisition, but you're going to see 5, 10, even more businesses after that, as we see some of our students doing right now. So if you guys can see right now, if you look at in the chat, you're going to see a book your call message that is going to be put out at the top. The link is also going to be put in the chat. If you want to jump on a call, there's only a few spots available to book a call with one of my senior consultants to see if this is a right fit for you and for us to work together on your first acquisition space. So we open some calendar space, and we're hoping to get you guys to do that. Now, Dennis and Carlos, and we're actually having a 3rd consultant who just joined us named Sean. So Dennis, Carlos, and Sean, they're going to be one of the people that you're speaking with. They're all entrepreneurs themselves. They're all going down the acquisition journey themselves. And hopefully over the next few months, one of them is going to have their first deal done as well. So the 4 of us now have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs go down this path, get started on their first acquisition. And if this is something that you think you're interested in, or you think that this is going to be the right choice for you and your family to build generational wealth, go click on the link, find a spot that works for you, book a call, talk to our consultants, see if it's a good fit for both of us, and to see if it's something that we can do to get your first deal done together. So now, if you have less than $20,000 in liquid capital for investing, this is not for you. And that's not because you're going to pay me $20,000. This is because most of our students utilize the SBA loan program. To qualify for an SBA loan to go and purchase your first business, they're going to want to see that you have at least $20,000 in savings in your account. So when we're putting this $20,000 number up there, it is for you as someone who is going to go through the program and hopefully go and purchase business to know that that is kind of the minimum requirement. Now, if you've never had any type of management or work experience, if you're 17 years old or 18 years old and you're just starting life, it's also going to be very hard for a bank to trust you to give you millions of dollars in loans to go buy a business, right? They want someone that has experience under their belt, someone who's had some type of management experience or sales skills or marketing skills or operation skills to be able to give them a loan to buy a business. Now, if you lack accountability and initiative to become a business owner, or if you have a rough credit score that's below 600, it's possible, but it makes it harder, right, to go through and make sure that you're able to qualify for that funding. But last and not least, if you're looking to get rich quick or something that's easy, this is not the place. Business acquisition is hard. The strategy that we teach and walk with you through is hard. That's why we have to walk through it with you. It's something that even the smartest people out there try to do on their own, and they fall flat on their face. So it's hard and everything else. Now, let me tell you who this is for. If you've always wanted to transition from employee to entrepreneur, then this could be for you. If you want to break that ceiling about what your boss said you can make or what's the ceiling on your salary cap, then this might be for you. If you're making roughly 6 figures in income a year and you want to take that to the next level, then this might be for you. So, and if you've had some type of management experience, then this could be for you. So if any of these sound like you, right now, click on the link, go check it out, book a call, talk with one of my senior consultants, Dennis, Carlos, or Sean. They'll answer your questions and see if you're a right fit to work with us on going and acquiring your first business. So if you are a good fit, here is what you are going to get. You're going to get a proven roadmap to acquiring a 6 to 7 figure business. All members are given the exact same roadmap that I'm using to go out and acquire businesses, which is going to fast track your journey to getting your first deal done. Just make sure that you're not going to waste your time, money, energy on things that just do not work. All right. You're going to get exclusive access to our community. At this point, we're over 300 now at this point, acquisition entrepreneurs working together. We have people that are partnering together. We have people that are funding each other's deals. You're going to get access to be a part of that network. It's awesome. There's 4 calls every single week that we're all jumping on live, answering questions, talking about deals, analyzing those deals. It is an awesome, awesome, awesome community. The mentorship and expert guidance, everyone in the group has 24/7 access to me, right? As you're going throughout the process and you're want someone to look over your deals, you have access to me. And I'll look over each one of my members' deals. I give them insights into doing it or not doing it, how they should structure it so that they can get the deal across the finish line. And then a dynamic learning ecosystem. We're constantly updating resources, courses, templates, everything to help you with analyzing your deals. And then off-market sourcing. We teach you how to do the off-market sourcing that we talked about earlier, how to build your list, how to write your scripts. You can use the same scripts that we're using in our own outreach to be able to outreach to these deals off-market so that you guys can get the best deals. Now, here's what some students are saying about the program. Again, if you want to read these, go over to trustpilot.com/acquisition ace, and you guys can take the time to read through these. Now, my team and I have done this at this point many, many times. We got it down to a science. Why would you go through all the trial and error on your own if you want to do this? When you can walk alongside my team, you can have me look over all of your deals, help you analyze them, help you understand what deal is good and bad, and how to get your deal done instead of trying to do this on your own. So here's some examples. You have Sean. He actually bought an accounting firm. John here. And again, you can check out all this stuff on my YouTube channel. John here was a trucking towing business. And then Will here bought 3 nail salons in the span of 18 months. Okay. So again, you can go check out all these testimonials, but they're out there and we have more coming to our channel soon. So if I'm being honest, there's nothing extraordinary about Will, Sean, or John. They're all normal people. They were all, the only thing that was similar between all of them is that they followed the exact plan that I put forth, that I do myself, and they were able to go and get their deals done. So you could do the exact same thing as I did. And as long as you're not afraid of working a few hours extra a week, we ask for 1 hour a day towards the strategy to do it in 6 months. You're not afraid to take calculated risks to change your life. You are not going to get extraordinary results without doing extraordinary actions, right? To get any type of reward, there is a risk associated with this. And we show you how to analyze that risk and see if it's worth for you and your family to go after. You're a driven individual and you're coachable and you're open-minded to going and getting your first deal done and listening to us as we go about trying to get the best deal for you. So at this point, you have a choice. There's 13 million businesses that got to exchange hands. There's 10 trillion in value that it needs to be acquired. And it's truly a life-changing opportunity. And by working with us, you're going to have the exact roadmap to acquire these businesses. Even if you have zero experience and if you have zero money, zero experience with business acquisition. The question is, are you going to do it just like Will, Sean, or John did, or are you going to watch from the sidelines? Okay, there's three options. You do nothing. You can continue on living your life as you're living it, which could be awesome. Like I said, this is not for everybody. But if you can see the value in what I'm putting down and the strategy that I'm laying out for building life-changing wealth, then that is the option there. Second, you attempt to acquire a business on your own. You do what I try to do, where it took me 18 months and I wasted $10,000 of my money before I was able to actually get one deal done. Now, if you choose this path, I wish you luck. I know what it's like. It's hard. Go for it. Or three, you apply to work with us today and you receive great expert advice. You walk alongside of us, we give you a proven roadmap about how to buy a business. Also, we show you how to run the business and get paired with a professional deal maker to practically hand you profitable deals. Okay. So with that all being said, if you think this is for you and you want to go ahead and get started in this journey, book a call with my team now. Follow the link there, which will go right to a Calendly link. Fill it out, book a time, and jump on with Dennis, Carlos, or Sean. All right. We got through the pitch, everybody. We're going to get to the live Q&A. We're just going to go through the frequently asked questions first, and then we're going to hit that live Q&A. How much capital do you need to start? As we mentioned before, $20,000 is the minimum because that is the money that the bank's going to want to see going towards the deal. 2, do I need an LLC to purchase a business? Yes, you do. 3, do I need any experience in the industry that I'm acquiring in? No, you don't. You do not need the experience. I've acquired 7 businesses. I had zero experience in all 7 industries. And I would say probably about 70% of our students do not have industry experience in the deal that they end up acquiring. 4, what's the minimum credit? We talked about it before, 600. There are people who have been able to do it with less, but again, they had a lot of assets, and so we want to see 600 and above. 5, can I do this part-time alongside a career? The answer is a resounding yes. I'm actually going to be putting a new testimonial on my YouTube channel soon with a student who has a full-time job, who just acquired a business in 4 months and is now making $135,000 a year in cash flow after debt service on the deal. And so check out the YouTube channel. You can see that review testimonial coming soon. All right, guys, we made it. It's been 47 minutes since we started, and we are finally getting to the fun part, which is where I get to answer all of your questions for you guys who stuck with me. I think 138 of you right now that are on this call. So I appreciate you all. And I'm going to jump over to the live Q&A and see what we got going on. All right. So if you have a question, make sure you go over to the Q&A tab, you post it in there, and I'm going to start hitting them right now in rapid fire sequence. Okay. Question from Tom 3. I don't know what that means, Tom. So if you have if the question has a little bit more to it, let me know. Question from Karina Haight. Scrape. Yes. So when I say scrape data, that's just a term to basically go and download data. So for instance, there's tools out there where you can scrape or extract email addresses, names, and phone numbers from platforms like LinkedIn. So a good example would be Apollo.io. You go there, make an account. I think you can make a free account, and you can get a certain amount of leads while you have a free trial. And you can search for different types of businesses, for businesses that are above a certain amount, and you're able to scrape or basically extract the data of all those owners across the country in whatever your search parameter is, and then you can outreach to them. So that's what we mean by scrape. Tommy, does seller financing mean they pay 100% down on an SBA loan? Or is it an entirely different type of loan, or 10% down? Okay. Seller financing, Tommy, is in addition to the SBA loan. So I'll do a quick example. You have a $1 million business. The SBA will fund up to 90%, sometimes even higher. But let's just say on average 90%. So that means the SBA is going to fund $900,000 of that $1 million. You're left with $100,000. Now, of that $100,000, you can get a 5% seller financing, which means now $50,000 of that $1 million is going to be seller finance payments to the seller. So it's an agreement between you and the seller, and you can say, hey, I want to pay you over 3 years that $50,000. And so the seller says, fine. You come up with the agreement, come up with the terms. Every month you will pay the SBA loan as well as another loan to the seller for that $50,000. Okay. And then $50,000, the other 5% left over would be either an investor or yourself bringing the capital to get the deal done. Okay, Lynn, can we rewatch this? Yes, Lynn, after this, if you want to rewatch it, send me an email and I'll send you the replay link. Dawson, advice for narrowing down where you should buy the business. So I would start out, Dawson, if you live in an area like, let's just say, Miami, Orlando, Houston, a larger metropolitan city, I would start in your area. One, it's going to make it easier for the lender to get on board to help you purchase the business. But two, for your first deal, it is beneficial to be close, even though I would say about 50% of our deals from our students are not local. They're in different states from where the student lives. But your first deal, if it is local to you, is going to give you an extra level of confidence and surety in knowing that everything is going well. As you start to get more advanced and do more acquisitions, they're going to be all over the country. But starting out, I would start to target your area if you're in a good area. And then if not, go to the closest metropolitan areas from where you live. Okay, what is the standard term length on an SBA loan, Tom's? And it's 10 years. Standard term is 10. Now, if you have real estate involved in the deal, then it extends that term because you can put the real estate in with the business. If the real estate is worth more than 50% of the total purchase price of the loan, which includes the business and the real estate, it can extend out to 25-year term. Okay. Angel, where can I rewatch this? Message me afterward and I'll send you the replay. Tommy, only asset is a 2023 Toyota. Don't have any property. Below liabilities is more collateral required for an SBA loan. It all depends on your cash position, Tommy. So if you have just a truck, no money in your bank account, and just a lower salary, then it'll be hard to qualify for a large amount of money from the SBA. But if you have some savings, you have the truck, no other assets, you have some 401k, you have some stocks, then yes, you can still qualify for a fairly good sized SBA loan. And just a quick note out there. We have not had any student, and now we're at over 380 students in our program. We've not had one student who has not qualified for some level of funding from the SBA. All right, we're very good at helping you guys get prepared to go in front of the SBA to get funding. All right, Norman, what time frames are LOIs open for? And if, for example, how long do I have to get an SBA loan approved? So LOIs, normally you're putting them out there. They have a framework where you have about 10 to 14 days between the LOI being signed and then having your purchase agreement created and then signed, right? Now, that's just in general. They could be longer. It could be shorter. That's where the LOI area is. And I think your second part is how do I to get SBA approved? So what you're doing is before you even get to that point, you're getting pre-qualified by the SBA, right? And you're going to get a letter of pre-qualification. Before you even throw out an LOI, you are taking the financials of the business you're interested in, and you're passing them to the lender that we introduce you guys to. So you have your own personal banker. You show it to the banker, and the banker says, yes, we love this deal. We'll give you $500,000 towards it from our bank. So now you know the number the bank's going to provide. Now you're able to write the LOI because you have the backing of the bank, and then you make your offer. All right, when you get an investor to put the down payment on a loan, how much equity should you give them? Okay, so there's two main ways in which investors are investing in deals and getting equity. First is kind of straight equity, which means if an investor gives me 10% down, so on $1 million deal, I have to bring $100,000 to the table. If an investor brings the $100,000, he gets 10%. He brought 10%, so he gets 10%, right? That means all profit distributions going forward, he gets 10% of those profit distributions. So straight equity. The secondary way that this happens is something called preferred investors. Now, preferred investors, this is where most professional investors are going to prefer because it really protects them. The way that that's structured is you have a interest rate, or basically it's like if they give you the $100,000, they're going to get 8 to 10 or sometimes even 12% yearly on that $100,000. So that's $8,000 to $12,000 a year. On top of that, they are going to get all of the cash distributions, or most of them, for the first few years until they make all of their money back, the $100,000. After that's paid back, they still get that 8 to 12% moving forward in perpetuity. So for the first couple of years, it's really hard because for the buyer, all your cash flow is really going to the investors. But once you pay them off, your cash flow greatly increases, right? So there's kind of this give and take. You're protecting the investors because they're giving risk. They're taking on a lot of risk giving you the money. But after the first few years, then you really get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. All right. Alexander, will AI affect my accounting firm acquisition somehow? Not in the way I think immediately how you think. So there are certain parts of accounting firms like bookkeeping where that AI can really get better at, and potentially it can start to actually take some market share, people who utilize it correctly. But for someone doing your taxes, because there's certain liability standards that go with that, right? Like if, for instance, if an AI did your taxes and then signed off on it, you signed off on it, and it ended up getting audited by the IRS, well, there's some liability issues there because it wasn't a person who actually did the work, right? When a CPA or your accountant does your taxes, they sign off on it and they take liability for the work that they did on it. So that I think is going to be protected for much longer. So I wouldn't be worried. And again, accounting firms, if you were to see the average accounting firm, they are as ancient and not modern as possible in the way that they operate. And so a lot of people, they're still using filing systems. They got stacks of paper in the office. They basically just started using email about 5-10 years ago. So it's a very much a backwards industry, which is great because it gives a lot of opportunity to get into the space and make it much better. Can a Canadian buy a US-based business? Yes, they can. Roughly, how much does it cost in legal fees to acquire a business? Roughly, so on average, I'll tell you two answers here, Dan. On average, people would tell you it takes $20,000 or more in legal fees. For our students, I created a service called SMB Diligence, where it basically is flat fee no matter what size your business is for $6,000 to do all the legal diligence to get your deal done. So, and typically it's over 20 grand. We're able to do a service that's much less for our students and for anyone else who wants to do business acquisition. Tommy, is changing an owner-operator HVAC business into an owner general manager possible? And is HVAC scalable if a lot of houses have already been converted to HVAC? Yes. To answer your question, is it possible to convert from a owner to a general manager? Yes, it is. Is HVAC scalable? Yes, it is. Now, the big play in HVAC or plumbing or electrical is really on the installation and then service model. So you install an HVAC system, and then you get them to sign a maintenance agreement where you come back a couple times a year. They pay $250 a year. Some of you guys listening might have some program for your house. And that recurring income is what really starts to gain steam and build a lot of value for a lot of these maintenance contracts for these different types of HVAC or plumbing or electrical businesses. So yes is the answer to your question. And that is kind of the play that what you're doing when you're getting into an HVAC acquisition. Colin. Let's see. Colin, innovate and upgrade is what Walker Diebold talks about in Buy Then Build. What are your best ways to do that to your companies? And are there certain industries that are easier to do so? Yes, there are definitely industries that are easier to do so. The industries that are going to be the easiest, right? Because what makes managing a business hard is the people in the business, right? So the businesses that have less people and are more reliant upon automations and technology, the easier those are to innovate and upgrade, right? When you have a lot of people-heavy businesses, let's take, for instance, a construction your construction company, and you have a bunch of subs that are doing a lot of work for you, the more people you have in there, the harder it's going to be to innovate and upgrade, right? So the more manual the labor is with people heavy, the harder it is to do that. Now, it doesn't mean it's not worth it. It doesn't mean that there's not a huge benefit to doing it and great profit to be made. But the less people and more tech that's enabled, the easier it's going to be to do that. Gabriel, I'm a college student. Is there a way I can still do this? Yeah, Gabriel, there's still a way you can do it. Again, what's going to be hard for you is the loan aspect. The SBA lenders are going to see you as someone who's young, lacking some experience, and it's going to be hard for them to do. Now, if you're not going to go and utilize the SBA loan and you want to do seller financing, absolutely. Anyone can do that. If you're over 18 years old, go out there and you can get a seller finance deal done. We talk about that in our group. We have some students who've been able to do it. It's harder to do because there's less sellers out there willing to do it. But if you put in the effort, you talk to a lot of different sellers, especially off market, you can definitely get a lot of deals that can fit that type of structure. Spig, I'm not in the US. Can I still buy a business? So I think what you're saying is in the US. And yes, you can, but there's different rules and regulations around it. You will not qualify for an SBA loan. If you're talking about can you buy a business wherever you are, absolutely. We have students that are in Canada, Australia, And we've had a couple that are popping on in the UK. This strategy can be used all across the world in their own markets. Which biz did you sell and why? David asked. So I sold a aluminum construction firm, and it's one of the reasons why I push my students to not buy construction is because it is a very, especially since I was not local to the business, and overall the return was way less than I had done. I also did it. It was one of my first. It's my second deal. It was one of the things where I didn't do the proper due diligence on the deal. I thought I understood. I did my first acquisition. It turned out great. I thought, hey, I'm not going to pay for due diligence. I'm just going to go forward. Everything looks good. And it bit me in the butt. That it was way less profitable than I thought. It was a huge headache. And it was one of those where I couldn't wait to get rid of it, right? And so now construction businesses in general are harder. And because it's so people heavy, because it's so just tumultuous in terms of the economic environment really affecting construction demand. And so it was one of those where in good times, it's very profitable. In bad times, you're losing money. So I got rid of it and focused on more scalable businesses. Can you get an SBA loan for an ATM route? Yes, you can, Tommy. And I've done it. And actually, it's funny you mentioned ATM. Me and my partners in that deal, it's the first SBA funded ATM route that anyone can remember in the last few decades across the country. We had to pick an amazingly clean one with awesome books. It took us like 4 months to get it through financing, but we finally got it done. First one of its kind. And so that was really fun. So that is something where we also add in terms of the strategy and how we want to go do that. That's also something that we talk about within our program. Lynn, are there any startup benefits for veterans? So startup benefits, not necessarily, Lynn. So if you're asking for like the SBA loan program, do they have any veteran benefits? They don't. Now, there are certain types of businesses, like for instance, government contracting businesses, where if you're a veteran, you kind of get priority in if you were to own a business like that in terms of bidding on contracts. But as far as getting something from the SBA, a loan or getting preferred rates, I wish, because I'm a veteran as well, but it doesn't work on that side. Jacob, Victor asked, when you get an investor to put the down payment on the loan, how much equity should you give them? It depends on how much they're giving. So just like we talked about before, Victor, if it's $1 million deal and the investor gives you $100,000, that's 10%. So he's going to get at least 10% of the business. That's typical. Could be even more depending on the type of investor. Is he bringing more value than just money? Does he kind of want to partner alongside of you and actually work in the business? There's a couple different things that you have to factor in, but he's at least going to get 10%. Tony, what kinds of industries are typically not worth it? Was eyeing a water refill station that seemed interesting. Water refill station. Oh, I've seen those. Those kind of like those ones you drive up to and kind of do that. So anything that's kind of automated, whether it's ATM, vending machine businesses, I've seen ice machine businesses. All of those are, it's all about acquiring an existing one, right? We want to see the numbers. We want to see the proof that these things are actually making money. We want to see the tax returns. We want to see the P&Ls. And if it all looks good, great. Yeah, I'm in. I have nothing against it, especially if it's automated, doesn't have really many employees whatsoever. I'm in. But it has to show me the proof. It has to show me the proof that it's actually legit. All right. Lizzie asked, in the examples you talked about with your students, how did they find their accounting deals? All of those accounting deals, Lizzie, were on market. So they were searching, connecting with brokers, and they were sent those deals from their broker networks, or they were listed online. Jake, Rui asked, why would a boomer sell their business instead of passing a good cash flow business to their children? That is a great question. So here's the numbers on it. 30% of sellers pass their businesses down to their children. 30% of them end up selling, and 30% of them close their doors, they don't give it to their kids, and they don't sell. A lot of times they try to sell, they just can't because there's not enough buyers out there. That's the other thing right now. There are way more businesses on the market than there are buyers. Buyers have all the leverage. We have all the power because there's way more businesses for sale, and only 30% of them are going to sell. Okay, and so we have the power in this scenario. So many people's children don't want to take over the business of their parents. Maybe they grew up in it. Maybe they just don't like it. Maybe kind of they saw how hard their parents worked in building it up, and they want nothing to do with it. Plus, they have their own careers, they have their own families. Maybe they don't live next to their parents. They don't want to move back to where their parents live to take over the business, or any one of those things. But only 30% of those businesses will pass down to their children. Okay, Dan, are most of the businesses you purchase operated out of a rented or owned location? How does it affect the deal? I would say the majority of businesses, Dan, are leased. They're in a location where they're leasing. If the business owner owns the actual real estate, we try to always capture that in the deal. We always want to, if there's real estate available, we're going to try to make the numbers work to get it in there, because it's just much better to get the real estate in there. How do you affect the deal? So like I said, most are leased. The way that the SBA is structured, the deal is you have to, if there's a lease, you have to renegotiate a lease for at least 10 years, because that's the length of the SBA term. They want to know that what the rate is locked in for the next 10 years, because they want to know what is the debt service coverage ratio. They want to see how much, because they know what the debt's going to be because they're giving you the loan. They want to make sure there's enough cash flow to pay them back over the next 10 years. Nathaniel, once you buy the business, don't you have employees to pay? Yes, you do. And so when we're talking about cash flow and seller discretionary earnings, that's after all employees are paid, after all expenses, after all debt service. That's after everything. That's just profit left over. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about cash flow. Chandra, how is the first paycheck schedule structured? Would this be considered the owner's monthly salary based on previous and expected profits? Yes. So there's two ways that an owner is going to get paid. Through you're paying yourself as a W-2 employee. Like in my businesses, I'm an employee of my business. I'll make from this business, I might make a salary of $50,000. This business, I might make a salary of $120,000. And then there's something called distributions, right? That's the profit that's left over after all of that's said and done. And let's say at the end of the year, there's $100,000 left in profit. I can then pay myself that $100,000, or pay 50 of it to me and then keep 50 in the business, whatever you want to do with it. But distributions are those profit distributions from the business to the owner. Dawson, have you ever looked into self-storage? Yes, I have, Dawson. Self-storage is awesome. It's also extremely competitive. And the cap rates on self-storage have been declining because of how competitive it is. And so I've not gotten into it just because of how competitive it is. And I can see other industries out there like accounting firms and other businesses that are way less competitive, making way more cash flow. But I do like self-storage. If you can find a great deal, definitely do it. Corey, assuming the salary or profit share for seller remaining is included in these numbers. If so, what were they paid? So let me see your question again. Assuming the salary or profit share for the seller remaining. If so, what were they paid? Yes. So, okay. So your question, Corey, is that when you were looking at some of those examples in the numbers and it showed SDE and it said $576,000, that was after, that is including the salary that the seller was paying themselves. Yes. So when you're showing that if you buy the business, the seller, if they stay on, and let's say they're making the same salary, then you're going to have to minus that salary from that 576 in that example. So let's say the seller was paying themselves $100,000 salary. You would take the 576, you minus it, now you're at 476 for the SDE because the rest is coming to you. So I think that's what you were asking in your question. Gabriel, I'm a college student. Is there any way I can still do this? Yes, but you're probably not going to be able to go the SBA route way unless you find a partner who is older that can take on the SBA loan, or your job at this point is to do a seller financing as your main way of doing this. Kyle asked, do you ever use earnouts? So yes, a lot of times the earnouts are in seller finance heavy deals without SBA loans. If you're using an SBA loan, they kind of frown on earnouts and they kind of don't let you do that in the structure officially. There's ways to do it kind of on the back end with a sidecar agreement, but by and large, if you have an SBA loan, it's very hard to kind of structure an earnout because they don't like it in the way that they structure out their SBA loan. But yes, you can definitely use it, especially in seller financing. Tommy, are you penalized for paying off SBA loans early? Also, are liquor stores recession resistant? Liquor stores are definitely recession resistant, but SBA loans have a thing against, they call it vice businesses. That would be liquor stores, cannabis, strip clubs, gambling places, like all those types of places they don't do loans on. It's very hard to get a loan for a liquor store by the SBA. So you might not be able to fund it that way, but they are recession resistant. Are you penalized for paying it off early? No, after I think the first or the second year. It depends on the bank. Each bank will put in their own kind of payoff period. Normally, if you pay it off too quickly, there is a penalty. You can get penalized, but I think it's within a year or two. It's where most of them fall off. Okay, let's see. Penalized. Amir asked, can a Canadian qualify for a business loan in the USA? They can qualify for a conventional business loan, but not an SBA loan, unless they're an American citizen or you're partnering with an American citizen. Colin, why would a seller agree to 0% seller financing compared to having interest on their loan? Very good question, Colin. So it really depends on a seller that's going to agree to 0% seller financing in terms of, I think what you're saying is the zero interest on the seller financing. I think is what, yeah. So if that's your question, then usually those types of deals are sellers that have made their money. They're not really going after the big bang at the end. They're already kind of well off. They are doing this for tax purposes. So they want to do a seller finance deal, get paid out over 5 years or 10 years. They don't care about tacking on 5 or 6% interest. And they just want that monthly income coming in because overall they're going to make more money normally because you usually pay them a higher price to do that. And they're going to have less of a tax burden. So it's really just most of the time the seller's going to want a little bit of interest, but it's possible sometimes to negotiate 0% interest if you give them the total number that they're looking for. Right. Baharath asked, how do you structure employees to manage remotely? So a lot of this has to do with incentivizing them correctly. So if you're having the seller maintain as the GM, it's kind of easy because the way we structure that is we give the seller equity. So we give the seller equity in the deal. So we say, hey, we'll buy your business, but you get to keep 10% equity in the business. So they get the first cash influx from 90% of their business selling. They keep 10. And now they're incentivized to help you grow the business because they're going to have a second exit down the road when you sell the business, right? So you're figuring out how to incentivize that person who's sitting in the GM spot so that when you sell the business down the road, they get a second crack at making even more money. So if you don't have the seller be your GM, if you have a GM already in the business, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to give them a little piece of equity. You're going to incentivize them to stay and to grow the business just like they are the owner because they're a partner in the deal. All right. Daniel asked, there seems to be a lot of potential for artificial general intelligence to disrupt certain acquisitions. Why would an AGI be able to replace what my CPA firm does within 2 to 3 years, particularly one you've acquired? Good question, Daniel. I kind of went over this earlier about AI as in accounting firms. There are certain things that accounting firms do, like bookkeeping, where I can definitely see AGI being a big player in the next few years. But as far as actually doing your tax returns and everything else, I can definitely see there be like you have TurboTax out there who's kind of like you kind of walk through it and do it. The issue where you get into is the liability side. When someone does your taxes, they have to sign off that they've done your taxes and they hold liability that if they did them incorrect, there's fees, there's penalties. So if you're having artificial intelligence do your taxes, there's no liability on them, right? Like if they did them wrong and submitted them and it comes back that it was done incorrectly and now you owe all these penalty and fees, well, who are you going to blame, right? So it's one of those things where like that's why your accountant or whoever's doing your taxes signs off saying, hey, I did these. If anything comes out of it, guess what? They're on the hook. And so I think it's going to take time for those laws and kind of norms to change. So in terms of the next 10, 15, 20 years, like 10, 15 years, I don't see where that's going to be hugely disrupted because the tax industry has not been disrupted literally for like the last 80 years, even though a lot of stuff has happened in tech and in modernization and remote work. Most accounting firms are run by baby boomers that are retiring, and they run the firm the same way they did since the 1980s. So I don't see that as being a huge disruptor in that industry. All right. David asked, have $200,000 liquid capital, best biz you recommend? From David. I would have to know a little bit more, David. I would have to know about like where you are. What is your overall goal? Is it just do one acquisition? Is it to acquire many acquisitions? Do you want to do a roll-up strategy in a particular industry? Do you just want to get the best possible cash flow going for you? So I don't know too much about your situation, but I would say stick to white-collar professional services like accounting firms. And there's some other cool higher-end other white-collar professional services that I would recommend. Those are usually my favorite because they have the best margins. But after that, it'd be home services industries that I would point you towards. Jacob, Court asked, if the business has significant assets, real estate and equipment, does it make sense to have a different multiplier from cash flow? I rarely see 2 to 4x on biz buy sell. Yes. So if real estate is involved in the deal, it's added outside of the SDE cash flow multiplier. So for example, let's say, and this happens a lot in car washes, because car washes, the real estate almost always comes with it. And it's usually on a busy street corner that has valuable real estate. So the business might be doing $200,000 a year in cash flow, which means it's worth about, let's say, $600,000 for the business portion of the car wash. But the land it's sitting on might be worth $1 million, right? So they would sell that business for $1.6 million. Now, that's not a 3x multiplier from the cash flow because it's only $200,000 in cash flow. The real estate is seen as a separate thing that is added on to the purchase price of a business that's separate from the multiplier on the cash flow. Right. Karina, lawyer recommendations for this kind of entrepreneurship. Message me after, Karina. Like I said, I partner with a firm called S&B Diligence. We have 3 attorneys that work under us who do M&A diligence for these deals. And so I highly recommend them. That's the people I use. That's the people I recommend to my students to use. Tony, what kinds of red flags raise concerns in the ability of a business to remain profitable? And really, we're looking in depth the last 3 years of their financials. So we're looking at tax returns, P&Ls, and then once we get under contract, we're looking at literal bank statements. And then we're having a CPA professional go through and do a cash flow analysis over the last 3 years to show us what is the average cash flow month over month and what can we expect within a 3% variance moving forward. So we're very particular in how we go about seeing what these businesses will potentially do based on past performance, right? And we're very conservative in that. So that's kind of how we're seeing how they perform and moving forward. So with doing the proper diligence, you are very rarely going to be surprised by what the business is going to do after you've acquired it. Okay. Thoughts on dog service businesses. I like them. Mobile grooming, boarding, all great businesses. The dog business in general around pets is exploding. People are having more pets than they are children, sadly, these days. And so that is a huge burgeoning industry. So I'm definitely bullish on those services. I know the SBA, this is from Thomas. I know the SBA program is for U.S. citizens. I wonder whether there are any foreigners in your program. Yes, there are. We have probably over 13 or 14 Canadians in our program, some from Australia. And I mentioned before, I think a few that are coming in from the UK. So yes, there's people in there that are not using the SBA program, that are using their own country's loan programs or doing seller financing to acquire deals. Colin H. We have, where do you find a GM if the owner operator doesn't want to stay? If you don't have the owner operator wanting to stay and there's not currently a GM in the business and there's not currently an employee that can step up easily into that position, now you're taking on additional risk, right? This is a position that I don't like to be in and I don't want my students to be in because now you got to go out there and find one. It's totally possible to do. We just had a student named Josh Wilson do this like 3 months ago, and he's been super successful doing it in recruiting his GM, but it's not something I recommend. You're adding another layer of risk into the search process, and it's just going to compound on one another. It's already a hard thing to do. And trying to find your A player in last innings is very hard to do. Okay, Solon asked, what are the businesses that are best to run entirely on my own with no employees at all? Laundromats and mailbox stores. Okay, so yeah, if you can find a automated laundromat where there's no wash and fold, it's just machines open to the public to come in, they use their coins and their cash to buy. Yes, those can be fairly part-time for like one person just to check on for maintenance. Mailbox stores are the same way, storage facilities the same way. So there's definitely businesses out there that fit that. No ATM businesses, the one I have in Denver, Colorado, we have one part-time guy who goes and checks the machines. That's it. So you can definitely find businesses that have almost no employees that are also not online. Court asks, is there a cap on SBA amounts where you are no longer considered small? 5 million. It's a 5 million under your name for that particular NAIC code, which basically means you get 5 million from the SBA on every industry that you go into. So if you're buying accounting firms, you get $5 million of SBA backed loans for accounting firms. But then if you go into marketing firms, you have another 5 million, right? So it's kind of cool. They recently changed that. It used to be 5 million for you, the person, but now they do it based on industry. Sorry, I meant I'm based in India. Can I buy a business in the US? I can visit once a month. Yeah, you can. You're just not going to be able to use an SBA loan. But as far as all the other things we talked about, seller financing, all the other things that we've mentioned, yes. And you can partner with a US citizen as well to buy a business. LT, for cloud accounting services, it does not seem to be able to apply to traditional retail or manufacturing companies. Would it be only applicable to online companies as clients? It does not seem to be able to apply to retail. Would it only be applicable on? Okay, so you're asking to basically, I think what you're asking, LT, is going from a brick and mortar business, like a brick and mortar accounting firm, to an online cloud-based accounting firm. That industry is specifically able to do that, whereas retail and manufacturing companies obviously cannot, and that's correct. And so if you want to scale a business very quickly, right, the easiest ones to do are ones that are based online because you have online infrastructure that's able to instantly expand. If you're having a brick and mortar company, which there's a lot of great students in my program that have bought brick and mortars, we have 2 right now that are under contract under manufacturing deals. They're great companies. But if you want to scale extremely quickly, it's just much harder to do, right? Because you have people and you have to scale people, you have to scale equipment. That's much harder to do than scaling servers. And so, yes, you have to, depending on the industry you go into, each is going to have a different plan to scale. Okay. Corey, in the accounting purchase examples, what did the acquirer pay the owner to stick around? A salary. So for both examples, so in Garrett's example, the seller got a good salary to run the business, and the same thing for Andrew's deal, got a salary for that 1 year that he stuck around. Similar question to earlier, but why would someone sell their business, especially assuming they are not an active manager, for a 2 to 4x cash flow multiple when they or their kid can make that money back in 2 to 4 years? Great question. And that is a question where there are some deals where you go and talk to a seller where they're only working in the business 10 to 20 hours a week. They have multiple children. And I've asked them multiple times, well, why doesn't your son or daughter want to take over this business? And almost always the answer from the seller is, oh, well, they don't have enough money to pay me out. And part of the reason why owners think this is because they have no idea about the SBA 7A loan program. They have no idea about how to structure a deal where your children could take over the business and pay them out utilizing the loan. And actually, they get preferential treatment when it comes to SBA 7A loans. They can get 100% financing from an SBA 7A loan if they knew about it, right? And obviously, you're wanting to buy the deal, so you're not going to tell them all about it. But a lot of times it comes from ignorance and thinking that they need someone that has money to pay them to buy their business. And they don't think their kids have the money, so they look for other people who do. Okay, Michael. I need to keep my current job for now. Would you suggest my first business acquisition should be something like a laundromat, which seems cheaper, lower risk, or should deal size company not matter? I would say 75% of our students have W-2s that they're staying working full-time, doing an acquisition. And even after they buy the business, they're still keeping their job for the most part, just because now they like having 2 incomes. Your first business acquisition being a laundromat, I think would be great. Yes, they're lower risk. Yes, they could be cheaper. But I would say that in general, the larger the deal, the better. The bigger the deal, the less risky it's going to be because you have more revenue, more cash flow, more people that are running the day-to-day, more customers, more of a reputation. And that is harder to collapse than buying a business that's very small and one of your main customers leaves and now 20% of your revenue has dropped, right? So the more customers, the more revenue, the less risky it is. So sometimes it seems counterintuitive that taking out a bigger loan is less risky, but the business you're buying with that bigger loan is less risky to have. How do you negotiate your equity position when you bring $0 to the table? Well, Andrew, when you're bringing $0 to the table, you're taking on the risk of the loan you took out and you're personally guaranteeing that loan. So even if you bring $0 to the table, you're signing on for a $1 million loan. So you're having the vast majority of the equity because you have the vast majority of the risk. That loan is in your name that you have to pay back, right? So even though you're not bringing anything to the deal, you have the majority of the risk. Court, what is the best way to find off-market deals? I like cold email because it's the best bang for your buck. You can reach more businesses in a shorter period of time with directly to their email box. And if you do the correct scripting and outreach strategy, you can get a really good response rate and a lot of good meetings. Now, you can do cold calling, you can do snail mail. And you can do door knocking. Right? There's like 4 different ways to do it, but I like holding email the best. Ari asks, how are the distributions taxed at year end? Distributions are taxed at personal income level. Now, the way that I do it is you have a holding company, right? So that's like Ben Kelly LLC, and then I have my acquisitions, like acquisition A, B, C, D, LLC. And at the end of the year, they pay distributions to the parent company, which is the holding company. The holding company then pays me a salary and also pays me distributions. Now, because the distributions from the underneath the companies that go to the holding company, I then do expenses out of the holding company. So I'm able to basically use the holding company to pay a lot of my personal expenses, like travel and this, and that, anything that has to do with business relations that I do. So at the end of the day, I end up paying a lower tax rate overall, which is why I structure it that way. But at the end of the day, you're going to pay taxes, and distributions are going to be seen as personal income coming to you. David asks, you have 200K, best biz you recommend, missed it if you already answered what call. No worries, Jacob. I did, sorry, David. I did answer it. I said a white collar professional services like accounting firms. I would probably recommend that, but I would have to know more of your strategy in terms of, are you trying to get multiple acquisitions done? You just want to do one? Do you live in a certain part of the country? Do you have what's your background and experience is like? So I would have to know more to give you a harder recommendation, but that's just from what I can see. I would just say that. Colin H., what are the differences of buy then build compared to the Harvard Business Review? And so I would say buy then build is going to be, there's 2 different models here. Buy then build is more self-funded searcher. That means like me going out there, finding a business, funding it with my own capital or some investors and an SBA loan. That's a self-funded searcher. The Harvard Business Review strategy is more of a search fund method, which means like me and maybe another buddy of mine, we go get MBAs. We then go and raise like $4 million from investors so that we then go and we pay ourselves a salary from that $4 million. We go out and we spend 12 months to 18 months to find a deal, to acquire it, and now we run it as CEOs. That's more of a search fund strategy, and that's kind of what the Harvard Business Review goes through. Okay. Let's see. Court asked, or I'm sorry. Okay, good. You said that the SBA does not offer veteran benefits, but I've seen a little bit about SBA Veterans Advantage Program. You're the expert. I'm not doubting you, but just wanted your thoughts. Good coach there, Colin. Yes. So at the end of the day, I'll say this. In terms of you getting a better loan and better rates and any advantage in terms of that no. Nothing I've seen is where you're going to do that. Now, if you're a veteran, do you get preference from a bank in terms of like because every bank has their own kind of DEI metrics where they want to give a certain amount of loans to veterans, certain amount of loans to certain minority groups. Yes, that does exist. But at the end of the day, it's not about getting a better loan. It's more about just getting the opportunity at a loan more easily. Right. So that's what I should have said instead of saying there's no benefit. You're just not going to get a cheaper loan or anything else like that. It's going to be the same rate as everybody else. Okay, let's see. Bahath, what are the best options to find and acquire a SaaS company, and where can I search? I actually just shot a testimonial video today with one of my students, Avi. You guys will probably see it pop up on YouTube soon. He bought a SaaS company off Flippa.com. Website closers.com, Flippa.com, empireflippers.com, and even on BizBuySell that you'll find SaaS companies for sale all the time. Acquired.com is another place that you can go and check out. I love SaaS companies. My first acquisition was a SaaS company. They're great, and they're great to scale. Out of curiosity, do you ever plan on acquiring an 8-figure biz? Well, Colin, all right, taking and pushing it. The answer is yes. It's really going to have to come. It's really going to have to be the right opportunity. There's so much opportunity in the space of low 7-figure businesses out there, and they're very profitable. But yeah, if there's an 8-figure one that comes by and it looks great, and I have the right partners going on it, for sure. Lisa, I dialed in late. Please confirm if there will be a link for playback, including this Q&A session. Yes, Lisa, just message me afterward and I'll send you the link. Sarah, are your personal assets at risk if you take this loan out personally, or are you taking this loan out via an LLC? So the answer is yes to both. You're taking it out via your LLC, but you are personally guaranteeing it, meaning yes, Your personal assets can be forfeited if the business failed and you need to pay back the money. Now, the SBA, the bank is going to negotiate with you. You're not going to owe the full amount of the loan. They're going to break it down. But yes, that's what a personal guarantee will do on these loans. What books do you recommend? Two that actually Colin mentioned before, Buy Then Build, and then the Harvard Business Review. Those are the two best out there. There's some others that are out there on Amazon. I can't attest to the quality of them, but those are two that are tried and true. Colin, do you prefer the 25-year loan with real estate, or do you like the normal? I like the 25-year loan with real estate, one, because you have real estate, and that's also appreciating. So that's also an added benefit. Plus, your cash flow with the 25-year loan is almost always better. Colin, thanks, Ben. Have a blessed week. You too as well, Colin. Appreciate you joining, man. Jacob, how active in running, scaling the company do you like to be in your deals? I like to be I like to be the least amount of active as possible. I purposely pick deals and structure deals so that I am not running anything, if I can help it, after the acquisition. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that I have businesses now where I have a little bit I spend in each of them. And for my new acquisitions that I bring on, I'm structuring them to where I almost have zero involvement after the acquisition. All right. Brian, do you have any concern? Do you have concerns of employees leaving if the owner doesn't stay on? Yes, that is always a concern. And that's one of the reasons why it's imperative after the first few weeks after your acquisition that you are doing everything you can to build relationships with those employees, doing monetary gifts, meaning bonuses, increasing salaries. These are all things I do within the first few months of an acquisition to make sure that I am incentivizing those employees to stay on. Michael, Ben, you're the man. Very much looking forward to speaking with Sean Saturday. Boom. Glad that you're speaking with Sean Saturday, Michael. Andrew, what are the typical duties of running the business after acquisition? It depends on the deal. It depends on how you structured it. But most of the time, it is going to be you checking in with your GM weekly to make sure that your KPIs are being met and that they are letting you know of anything that you need to be aware of in the business. Awesome. I saw the message. Send me an email. If you guys want to get the replay, send me an email because as soon as I shut this down, I'm not going to be able to see the chat. So send me an email. Chadrock, I just got to join. Will there be a link? Yes. Send me an email, Chadrock. Tony, how hard or easy to get SBA loan with no previous business? I would say the vast majority of my students have no previous business ownership experience, and I have not had one person that did not qualify for an SBA loan. So if that answers your question on that, Tony. All right, guys. I think we are at the end of the question. As I mentioned before, we just got a last one for Lakshmi. What is the cost of your program? Sorry for missed. You did not. The cost of the program is $8,000 to join. It's a one-time fee to join into the program. And for a year, you're working with me and my team to acquire your first business. And then after that, you can stay in the program as long as you want. Access to the courses, the group, the 4 weekly calls is all a part of it. We help analyze your deals and help you with funding your deals as well. Great question, Lakshmi. All right. I think we're at the end. We've now been on, guys. I promised I would hit every single question. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. If you are interested in going down this path, again, go check the link, book a call with Sean, Dennis, or Carlos. And I appreciate you guys sticking with me. This was a lot of fun. You guys gave me awesome questions throughout the time, so I was definitely engaged. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to be seeing you guys inside soon.